What area did it come out of?
So the current world record actually came out of Georgia, of all places, right? Montgomery Lake in 1932, and it's withstood a lot of time.
It must have raised a lot of questions whether it was legit though.
Absolutely, and this is a similar theme across fishing, right?
Yeah.
And
because I mean that's the tough thing about it. If you had to show me the photo of your fish with that belly shot and you told me it was 20 pounds, I would have said sure.
right, because you
100%.
just, I mean, what other frame of reference would you normally have?
Bass just don't. That thing is.
We were just talking about my 17 pounder that Jake was just looking at on my Instagram. Because welcome everybody. This is Oliver and I here, host of Big Bass Dreams podcast. I think this might be episode 4 or 5. I'm not really sure, but I'm just taking a stab at this.
He's doing a great job, by the way.
Oh man.
Yeah.
I don't know about that. See,
Maybe
I can't
not.
get my cameras to work. Right? Luckily, we got some lav mics going for once. But I want to let you guys introduce yourselves here and just give these guys one quick little intro of
Cool.
like who you guys are and what you guys do.
All right, I'm Conway Bowman. I live in San Diego, California. I'm a fly fisherman. I target mako sharks on the fly, and I'm also the wetlands manager for the largest watershed in San Diego County. And we specialize. Well, I have a reservoir called Lake Hodges on our property, which is a world famous largemouth bass reservoir, which appeals to Oliver a lot. So I've been there. I've worked there for a long time. So that's what I do.
Yeah, I think mine actually stems completely or goes in congregation. My name's Jako Lucas and I'm from South Africa, but I live in Austin, Texas now. Born and raised and lived my whole life in South Africa, but became a fishing guide very early on after I studied. Spent my whole life since then guiding around the Seychelles, Mongolia, Norway, Russia, Bolivia, all sorts of crazy places. And I've been doing a little bit of filming, dabbling with all that kind of stuff, and did some cool stuff in cool places. And just been fortunate. Now we're here and hanging out with some great people.
Absolutely, and you got to say it a little bit slower for my audience because most of us are Americans.
Subtitles.
All right.
Subtitles.
All right, you've got a super dope accent, and this video should go viral because of it.
I love that. You got to dumb it down for them Americans.
Yeah, that's right.
It's slow.
That's a real thing. So introduce your full name one more time.
Okay, so I'm Yaku Lucas. I suppose,
Yaku.
Yaku. Yeah, I suppose you write the Jako, but you pronounce it Yakko. I'd say.
Okay,
Does that
so
make
it's kind
sense?
of like
So Americans
Mexican
say Jacko.
That's it. Exactly.
Hey, Jacko.
I respond to Susan if the fishing's good. Whatever you call me, doesn't matter.
Hey, Jacko, I got a big one right here.
Well, I'm really excited to explore some discussion with these two individuals here, guys. And we've been fortunate to be here at this Yeti Summit. We're all Yeti Ambassadors. And we're in a very unique situation where I get to bounce ideas and conversations and experiences with the top % of people in their fields, right? I don't know anybody else that targets 800 plus pound mako sharks on a fly out of San Diego and has 37 years of experience of managing San Diego, lakes that contain some of the largest bass that we've ever seen in the history of mankind that Jako and I were just discussing. He was talking about one of my fish, the 17 pounder, right? And this man is actually in charge of one of the infamous world famous bass fisheries, one of the few that have actually kicked out a legit 20 pound plus largemouth that was never trout stocked. So those are little dynamics that I want to explore with you guys here. And then Jako and I have had some fascinating conversations because he's traveled the world targeting these immense trophy predatory fish like I have just started doing in the last year internationally. And he's seeing a lot of the same results in the fly fishing realm of the big bait, thick lines, heavy weights phenomenon. So there's an interesting intersection here of worlds, right? We have a commonality in our region, Southern California, San Diego, LA, close, but far enough to where there's cultural differences in our fishing, right? And then you've just come from a whole nother part of the world, and you moved to a city that I moved to, and you're seeing content,
your pictures with your fish
in your city
that I live,
that you know.
Yeah.
Right. So I really want to explore in depth and just really have a candid conversation like we've been having for the past almost 48 hours.
Yeah, it's been great.
Because that's the funny thing I was thinking about earlier when we were sitting and having a chat on the couch is I remember sitting with a group of guides in the Seychelles in the island of middle of nowhere, guiding for months at a time, not seeing any human beings. And by that stage, you probably didn't know my existence, but then I knew Conway Bowman, the Mako shark fisherman, because it's that fly fishing realm too.
Sure,
where you like see some videos and you see some content, and like, especially when you're guiding, the only stuff you do is you get away from clients, you talk about them and how potentially they stuffed up or you had a great day, and then you watch fishing videos.
Yeah,
and
right.
That's kind of how it went. But it's amazing how the worlds come together.
It is.
I love it.
It is. It's amazing and with this Yeti event, how cool we bring all these sort of, all these things together. All the dots get connected, whether it's in the fly fishing world, the bass fishing conventional world, or even, the rodeo. It's really cool. And we but there's the spearfishing world, but there's a common bond between all of us, and there's a common sort of a theme with what we do. So
Absolutely.
it's really cool. Yeah.
There's a lot of parallels. There's a lot of learning opportunities between us all.
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest opportunity here, and that's why I wanted to share it with my audience. Like, my audience really appreciates that deep dive, right? That might go over the heads of most people. But like, dude, what I do is not for most people. Yeah. And I think that's kind of the same for you guys.
I'd agree.
For sure. 100%.
But when you connect with those like-minded individuals, even though we're fewer in number, man, it clicks so easily. We're having legit conversations with barbecue guys, spear fishermen, hanging out with fly guys.
Oh man,
bass guys are cool. But that's the thing is, again, and I think we are in the fortunate position now, lucky with social media, all that stuff, where historically there's been, I think, gaps in this where it's like every individual aspect of the game where we can bridge that gap and be a little bit more, because we all started fishing with conventional tackle. I still love fishing with my dad, rock and surf fishing for giant sharks with bait and just all that. It doesn't have to be finesse. It's just like brute giant fish, and it's a wrestle. Yeah. So that'll never go away, and that I think we all share that commonality, like between all of us.
And so we were talking about, I still love. Growing up in Southern California, I still love targeting the Florida strain largemouth bass and figuring out how persnickety they are, how difficult they are to catch, and how when you target them, you really refine your fishing game. You become a much better angler. Every day you target Florida strain largemouth bass in our clear water, deep reservoirs.
Small reservoirs. High pressure.
The thing that I don't think people realize is, and we all love chasing kind of fish out of the ordinary that's really large, is that people also don't appreciate. They might see them on social media, they might see this one giant fish, but they definitely don't see. Social media doesn't show the process that happens before that.
It does not.
The days and days without having it happen, the mindset, the playing through all of it.
Yes. There's no shortcuts, right? No. A fascinating conversation I was having with Chris, one of the barbecue guys here. Yeah. Was like, people are looking to him to skip all of that experience.
That's right.
And it's like, how big is your ash pile? Because that's directly correlating to how good of a barbecuer you are.
That's right.
And I was like, damn. Like, dude, that's deep.
So how interesting is that? Think about that. And I'm sure Chris went, well, you figure it out yourself, because it took me all this time to figure out how big that ash pile has to be to just be perfect. Yeah. So we all put in so much time. We have so much sort of institutional knowledge because we put in the hard work. Yeah. And as you said, social media doesn't touch on that point. It's like, a person there holding a fish, it's like, wow, okay, that person is a success. But people don't view what is really behind a lot of those pictures.
Absolutely.
And it's a journey, and it takes years and years to get to a certain point to kind of remotely have it figured out. Because as we talked about, you don't ever have it figured out.
Never.
There's always some curveball that's going to
Even
be thrown
at
at
the
you.
level that we all,
Yeah.
operate. Like, man, the learning opportunities just
Yeah.
never stop.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
But that's also what I think makes a good angler good, is if he's willing to continuously learn. Fail, learn, you always go through that process. Because
Right.
if you reach a point there where you're like, okay, like super, I've got this, then the fishing is the great equalizer.
Oh,
It really
Yeah,
is.
Yeah.
It is so humbling.
It is. It is.
So humbling. So yeah, this is a very fascinating dynamic for me, because I'm still a fishing geek at the end of the
Sure.
day,
Yeah.
and I watched your eyes light up when Jako started talking about the success he was seeing in a fly fishing perspective,
Sure. Yeah.
with the power of a bigger fly versus the conventional stuff that I see pretty much dominates the fly fishing world.
Right.
Because even in the conventional world, and they call us gear guys, if you guys weren't aware of that,
Yeah.
I just
Not
sounds
in a
weird
bad
to
way.
us. No, not in a way.
But we're both gear guys too, and that's
Yeah.
the other
That's
thing.
the thing.
And I got to clarify,
Yeah.
fly fishermen get a bad rap for being fly fishermen only. These two guys, we do both.
That's right.
And what that does, it builds a great knowledge and a base for being a much better fly angler.
And I think that's
100%.
why
I learn a lot
Yes.
more from conventional
That's right.
and then implementing into fly fishing than the other way around.
Yes.
I think the guys that jump straight into the fly fishing are a little handicapped.
They're
Right.
they're
They got the
definitely at a
blinders on.
disadvantage because they haven't put in all the work with the conventional gear, because you learn so many great lessons, throwing a spinning rod, throwing a casting rod, throwing a plug, working a plastic worm, a jig, a spinnerbait, throwing live bait on. I mean, those are all important intangibles you have to learn before you can pick up that fly rod and be successful at making the cast and feeding that fish.
Yeah.
Your ash pile grows so much faster.
There you go. So there's the ash bait. You're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So this is really just hopefully an eye-opening experience. No matter what your genre or discipline is just to be open-minded and look at somebody else's perspective and experience, so your ash pile can burn twice as hot and build twice
That's
as
a great
quick,
analogy.
like
That's
fast.
great.
Like
Yeah.
I'm
Exactly.
telling you, I
That's
was
a-
mind blown by that. I'm like,
That's awesome.
that's so simple, but it makes so much sense.
A lot of metaphors. I love
It
it.
really
It's
is.
great.
And I've learned that through fishing, right? And I've been able to apply it in my personal relationships,
right.
business relationships, everything. There's a lot of synergy and analogy there and parallels.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm fascinated to pick both your brains, because you guys both represent a different perspective that's totally foreign than mine. So
But
those
yet very unique and alike. Because
Absolutely. Well, if you guys watched the previous roundtable podcast that we did, we had spear fishermen
Yeah.
involved, right? Hunters,
Yeah.
because you hunt.
Yeah.
Do you hunt?
I don't hunt, no.
I don't hunt either.
Yeah.
But I could see some parallels from that hunting
Sure.
mindset that totally applies to trophy fishing, which apparently is just like trophy hunting.
Yeah.
There's just so many parallels to draw from the top 1% that's represented in this whole facility.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
But I think that's also an evolution as an angler, that you go through these phases and evolve, and to a point where you know what it takes to get to a certain level to reach and go for these kind of trophy fish. It's not like you can get lucky. We also take luck every day, but
Yeah.
most of the time it's hard work.
You have to work
Most of
through.
the time.
You have to work through whatever fishery you're working through. So you'll start on a bonefish, and then you'll graduate to whatever, and then you get your permit, then a tarpon, and then all of a sudden you start really focusing in on certain things like your GTs or your big giant tarpon, and then it's the tackle, it's the approach, it's the it's learning the water, it's the whole thing. So you're always evolving to be this better angler.
And I'm fascinated by this whole fly fishing culture, because you guys honestly take the fly fishing as an art form, which in many cases, from what I experience, isn't the most efficient way to deliver a lure to a wary fish.
Sure.
And you guys take that to an extreme and find success. So to me, that brings back the importance of the context, right? Because you guys are making something that's already hard to do
Way harder.
ultimately harder. So when you're like on the fly, like that means something.
So why is that? From a fly fisherman, why do we do that? I'm just curious about that.
So I've always said to me, but I mean, you can also probably say it with conventional tackle. I feel when I'm fly fishing that I feel like I'm a much more connected with the fish and nature than I am with any other of the forms of fishing. Just purely because when I'm casting, I'm stripping the line through my fingers and literally this hand's moving the line through here and I'm looking at the fly, I'm moving, all the movements are coming through and you feel every single bit. I mean, I know when you're winding and you're feeling the bite and all that kind of stuff, there's just something that makes me feel a little bit more connected to it. And just the challenge of it. I mean, more so than all of it is just the challenge of being able to present a fly to something that I might have caught on conventional stuff, and being able to catch it on a fly is just maybe a little bit more of an accomplishment for me, and just feels like I've achieved something better. Not necessarily that I take anything away from anybody else catching amazing fish. It's more of a personal journey or something that I go on, but it's definitely a cool way. And once you get sort of in that addiction of wanting to catch one species on a fly, then you want to catch another species on fly and another species on fly, just then sort of balls up. I do think there's certain species that I've fished for historically, like tiger fish, and there's specific stuff in Africa that it's weird that I think, it's not trying to sound cocky, but I feel like I've been in positions a few times before where I've outfished conventional guys, just because the way that the technique that we fish there is I can have the fly lie and sit in front of the fish longer, or I can present it in a better way. As with tackle, you're moving and you're getting it out there a little bit more, so I feel like I can do that easier.
That's a real thing that I've experienced.
Right.
One time in Costa Rica, the local guide, my man, he's a Sarapiqui River guide in Costa Rica, and he's a fly fisherman, right? And his ability to use this machaca fly, a fruit,
those,
right? Made out of a cork from a wine bottle, and keep that thing in the zone and make multiple presentations in the span of me making one conventional cast.
And really get all the
Dude,
way.
it was a numbers game.
Exactly.
And in that space, he was so much more efficient than we were. Yeah. Because your bite came as that fake fruit hit the water.
Right.
Yeah.
And it took me how long to make that perfect cast, hit the water, and then I had to wind it all the way back in to where he was just like.
Exactly.
Just presenting.
So, and I've been in situations like that with largemouth bass in the Southern California lakes.
When they get on those no-see-ums?
Very
silver
small
sides?
baits, silver sides, but when the fish are pinched up very close to the shoreline, and this story reminds me of a time I was out with a bass guy, and I was in the stern of the boat, he's in the bow, and we were targeting fish that were pinched very close to the bank. I mean, they were probably in 4 inches of water, and they were nosed in, and they were basically hitting. They had those silver sides pinched up against the bank. So I could make a 40-foot cast, a cast like this, make 2 strips off the bank, and I knew the hit zone was in that 3 or 4, 5, 6 inches off the bank. Once I got out of that zone, I could pick right back up and hit it again. That guy
almost instantaneously.
That guy had to make 1 cast, and then he had to work that zone, and then he had to reel it all the way back. So I had 3 casts to his 1 cast, and I outfished him basically 3-1.
Wow.
And he was blown away. He's like, wow, I never knew the fly rod could do that. And the other thing was, he was limited to what size bait he could throw.
Right.
I could throw, because I'm throwing the weight of the line.
That's right.
Not the
and
lure.
Not the lure.
I'm throwing almost a micro Clouser minnow. And that's exactly what they want.
And it's a funny phenomenon because people that follow what I do, they kind of initially knew me as a big bait guy, but I grew up as a Southern California finesse fisherman because that's what it took just to get a bite.
Right.
So I go the opposite extreme, but there's still like this threshold where you just can't effectively deliver some of these small baits.
And that's a good example of that.
Yeah. So I would like to actually add that to my repertoire. Because there may be a time when I go compete at the highest level.
No, don't do that.
Maybe.
The thing is like I think as
imagine
much
a fly fishing application on the Bassmaster.
Well,
Elite
they've
or
tried that, haven't
the
they?
Open.
I think
there was a I saw a movie where they had a fly guy up against a bass guy.
But
I
not
don't
in the
remember.
context of an actual
Yeah,
event.
Oh no.
and they've tried to do that, but it's just such a limited opportunity. I mean,
But that's the beauty about fishing. That could come up in any scenario.
I kind of wish, like, I honestly wish that something like that. I don't want to like bash fly fishermen much, but
'Cause
I
you're a
still
fly
think
fisherman.
There's still too much. There's still in the fly fishing industry. There's still a little bit more too much tunnel vision.
Okay.
Like there's not that. Yeah, it's a weird industry. It's amazing.
Elaborate on that a
There's-
little bit as far as the tunnel vision.
I don't see, like, for example, we were designing a specific fly rod. This is actually a really good example. We were designing a fly rod, and then we wanted to change the specific guides on it. So we wanted to use a guide that's a recoil guide, which is good for traveling for us, so that it bends up backwards. But the recoil guide had to have a ceramic insert so that the line flows a little bit better, because I've got recoil guides on most of my rods, but the line doesn't flow as smooth as it would if you have ceramic.
Interesting.
So what happened is the eyes we ended up using, so you use the normal snake guides up at the top, but the bottom 3 or bottom 2 were those guides. But the reason why we canned that idea is because they look too much like a spin fishing rod, and you'd lose that market. So
it's an aesthetic
thing.
Yeah.
So why would fly fishermen not use that rod? Because it looks like a spin fishing rod. You're like,
even though it's technically superior.
Yes.
Absolutely.
It's sad to say it. Like I shoot myself in the foot here, but it's true.
No,
I
it's so
I feel
true.
like it's true.
Because
Absolutely.
they look at things like that,
And
like
even-
a hypalon grip, like a full wells grip with hypalon. Oh, we can't do that because it's not going to sell.
It's
to our
against the
base.
culture.
Because it'll sell to guys like us, but we're not the base.
You guys are definitely an enigma
Yeah.
in the fly fishing world. But I think you guys need to pay attention as fly fishermen if you guys are watching, because you guys are doing some extreme level stuff with the fly rod and doing it proudly in a way that fascinates a gear guy like myself.
And that's actually a really good thing.
It really is.
It's
No, it
really-
really is.
Yeah,
it really is, man. It's crazy.
Because fly fishing, you still would be so surprised. 90% of people that I speak to think fly fishing is dry fly fishing for trout.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
I'm like, I haven't done that since, can't even remember.
Right.
Is
I
that
don't
kind
even
of a
think I've done
parallel to like a gear guy being like a bobber with the bell? I mean,
Yeah.
even though you guys use bobbers, indicators.
But I think for the most part also that I think, like I said to guys, so when I'm guiding on the Texas coast, guiding fly fishing, and a gear boat would drive past, and music would be playing, and they're a jolly bunch of guys. But
Jolly.
like they might drive a little bit close to us, so they spook the fish we're pulling in on, and the clients kind of get frustrated. It's a little bit of a frustrating situation because I had a plan, but I said to them, if you go to the dock and you have a chat to that guy, he could be your next best friend, because it's not a question of, it's just the way that they live, the way that education. The thing is, if I maybe say to him, look, come with me one day on the boat and we go and catch a couple of reds on a small spinning rod and you can try a fly, maybe I introduce him to fly fishing, but he hasn't had that opportunity. So you can't dig out on that guy and say you're a stupid whatever.
Yeah.
And I think fly fishermen still make that judgment too quickly.
It's not only fly fishermen. I think everybody's guilty of that. And this is why I appreciate events like this, because it brings the right people face to face. All right, I get to actually engage with you guys in a very personal fashion, and that's what's been lost recently with the advent of all these platforms.
Yeah.
Like, let's say I actually sent you guys a direct message. Like, you don't know who I am.
Yeah.
Like, it's hard to filter out because you guys have such big platforms. You guys are probably being bombarded by people, right? Looking to you guys for insight, for advice, for whatever. And it's hard for us to filter that.
Yeah.
But because, like, we're hanging out here, having a nice drink, or you meet somebody at the bar or at the ramp, and you just start talking fishing, the passion overcomes everything.
Yeah, the barriers are broken down.
That's right. And it's not a fly fisherman versus gear guy. It's not a bass versus whatever guy. It's like, oh, you like to fish?
Yeah.
What do you do?
Yeah.
And that I really feel like the fishing cultures overall need more of that.
Well, the fishing culture is it's very compartmentalized, and it's really evident in terms of when we're dealing with conservation issues on the West Coast, the fishing community can't really get together because they're so fragmented, they're so compartmentalized and marginalized. You got the big swim bait guys, you got this guy, this group, and they can't get it together.
Fly fishing Jako guys.
But I know. But the thing is, we're all here to fish, and we all have a common goal is to enjoy the resource.
Absolutely.
But I wish we had more events like this where we could all get together and talk.
Yeah.
But in Southern California,
we talked about
you've
this
seen that struggle.
In depth. Yeah.
In the bass world, I mean, it's very compartmentalized. I mean, it's probably more compartmentalized than even fly fishing. I mean, fly fishing, you got the dry fly guys, and nymph guys, the swing guys, the check nymph guys. But honestly, we can deal with that. But the bass world is out of control at times.
Insane.
It is,
and there's. And you might look at us from an outside perspective going like, aren't you guys all in California? Aren't you guys all on the West Coast? But like there's such a separation even in between San Diego and LA.
Yeah.
2-hour difference with no traffic, right? There's totally different cultures.
And the techniques and all
absolutely
everything. It is so interesting.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I'm a West Coast guy through and through. I'm an LA guy through and through. But sometimes like it makes it tough for me to represent that part of the world in the bass fishing space because California, Southern California, and I hate to say it, but like San Diego even seems to take that level of negative energy to another level.
Right.
And it's wild, man, because like, we're all passionate fishermen because it's an amazing activity. It can bring so much value to our lives, and it should be an escape from all the real bullshit that we all have to deal with as human beings, right? Dude, there's so much effed up stuff in the world that we all have to deal with, and it bums me out that people drag some of that with them into the fishing realm, and that just seems to be more prevalent from where we are from.
Yeah.
And it's really disappointing. Do you see that, like, as an outsider?
I'm not aware of as how political it is. I know that particularly competitive angling is very political and lots of drama and all that kind of stuff. But like, the thing that I think that people just need to do, and I know people might see some of the stuff that I've done and think that I've got a pile of money stacked next to my bed because I'm doing all these trips, but I can assure you I come from nothing. I have nothing. I do these things because I work hard. But if you travel the world and you go to places, you've been to a couple of places and traveled now, then you suddenly see how small your world is and you mean nothing. Like people don't care. Like you said, we're all here to fish. You suddenly realize like, these guys in Australia are awesome. They also want to fish. These guys in South Africa, they also want to fish. These guys in Norway, they want to fish, and that's all they want to do. In Mongolia was the most impressive place that I've ever seen. It's a country that had we the guys that moved in there with fly rods and all sorts of stuff where they suddenly just adapted the sport and just they're passionate people. They all get together. Now when I'm guiding in Mongolia, I see a Mongolian, which you would never imagine with a fly rod spay casting down a run. Yeah. You're like, man, we had a bit of an impact, and these guys don't care about any political stuff and bad like.
They're so fortunately removed from
they're just happy
toxicity.
And pure. It's just pure. All they care about is the fishing.
That's so dope, man.
Yeah. So, like I said again, if people can get out and travel more and see how small these things. Just like there's all first world problems. Like you go to a country like
I know exactly
like Cuba, you see those people get their average salary of $20 a month. That's what they live on, and we like bunching heads with guys that's across the lake trying to catch fish that we want to catch.
It comes back down to perspective, right?
Right.
And understanding like, man, those things that we are making problems aren't real problems.
Right.
Like even when I get cut off and I get San Diego'd, right? Because that's what we used to call when my bass club from LA County.
Oh yeah, I've lived that for 37 years,
and
but I don't do it. I observe from the shoreline, going, these guys are a bunch of dicks.
That became a verb. Like it really did, and because they had such special fisheries that we looked forward to the fishing part, but not dealing with the fishing culture part.
Yeah.
Because it was ruthless, man. These guys would cut you off on the bank, and they just wouldn't be nice people. Yeah. Like it was wild, and it would come up every year. Like, do you guys want to go down to San Diego this year? And it's like, yeah.
That is so interesting.
So it gets primal out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, and it's sad that it comes to that.
Yeah. Well, people protect their territory. I mean,
that's understandable.
That's in everybody's DNA.
Right.
But you can still be more pleasant about it and be more engaging with folks and share the fishery. I mean, that's what it's all about.
True, but here's my message to our communities and our cultures is that it's easy to be selfish and want to preserve the special moments that you've put so much work and built that ash pile to experience, right? But it's so selfish to not want somebody else to live those same dope experiences.
Exactly.
Right.
Why would you not allow somebody else to want to fish?
Because you're not passing the torch, and you're not creating the next ambassadors of that great fishery. And we saw that in fly fishing. I mean, fly fishing really did that for a lot of years. They, the icons held it to themselves. They didn't want to share the knowledge.
Right.
And eventually that happened, but there was not a lot of passing of the torches for a long time.
No.
We're fortunate now that that's happened.
Yeah.
But and that created some animosity in the fly fishing world. But I see that in the bass fishing world,
right?
At least in what we're talking about.
And I get it. I was there.
Yeah.
Right. I was that person. I understand that perspective. But here's something to ponder: is if you can control it to a degree where the sport really isn't growing, you got to realize there's people trying to take away our ability to do it in the first place.
Let's talk about that, and I'll address that. So,
Yes.
if you're not passing that torch, passing on that knowledge, you have less interest. People do other things, and guess what? All these reservoirs that we're talking about are all pretty much privately owned by, or they're owned by municipalities.
And real quick, remind these people of your role.
Okay, so as a wetlands manager, reservoir keeper for 37 years in the city of San Diego water system. And if you don't have fishermen engaged, meaning fishing those reservoirs, you have a lower recruitment for your fishermen down the road. And if there's no interest, then there's no motivation for those agencies to keep those reservoirs open for people to fish. And they lock the gates, and you'll never get in. And that's what it is. And I've seen a drastic and I've seen a drastic decline over my 37 year career in participation by anglers.
Wow.
And it's really interesting to see how that happens. And honestly, these agencies are looking at this going, well, nobody fishes anymore, so why do we need to keep them open? So they lock the gate, and you're kept out.
That's
I'm
right.
kept out. You're kept out.
So that selfish point of view
That's
is
right.
self-defeating ultimately.
Absolutely. That's why we need to share that knowledge, teach people how to fish, how to engage.
And just be cool, man. I've met some amazing people through sharing the experiences that I've had through fishing. Just don't be a dick. It comes down to that. Seriously.
And I was talking to a very prominent bass fisherman in San Diego the other day, and I'm like, look, you guys as a community need to get together collectively and really get strong and put all your bullshit aside and really start petitioning to do what you need to do to keep these lakes open for certain days, because I'll tell you what, just like I said, if you don't do it, and if you don't have a voice and you don't get together collectively, you will not be fishing these lakes in 10 years. They will be locked up, and you'll be looking through binoculars from the lake road going, wow, look at all those bass crashing the surface.
They're boiling. Yeah.
That's a kind of the funny thing I see in Texas, where I've been received really well there as a guide. I'm a newbie there, which I've a year and a half guiding there, so I consider myself a newbie, and I try to respect everybody as possible. But the thing is but yeah, exactly. What is that guy saying? But I see that there's I see some of the more old school guys get very frustrated when they see a lot of skiffs around and maybe weekend warriors coming to guide and stuff. I said to them, you can't see that as a negative thing, because if we start occupying and educating those guys, then they're gonna start looking more after that fisheries. They're gonna keep guys that aren't running it right away from it. So don't look at it as a negative thing. It's the same. It's going to be sacrilege for me to say this, but so like we spoke about the Baja fishery very quickly about the roosters. So I only fished there once, so I have very little, if nothing, to say about it. But what I saw there is a lot of the local fishermen and guides, amazing people, but very, very upset about everybody fishing there. And the thing that pisses me off is why is everybody not allowed to fish there? It's water. Just go and fish there. They're going to see it's not easy. I mean, catching a rooster fish off the beach on fly is super hard. They're going to go there. They're probably going to fail. They're going to say, this wasn't as easy as I thought it was going to be. They're not going to go again. But why do you want to not allow somebody that joy? Why do you want to take joy away from other people?
Because
people,
they feel like
negative.
That's making it harder for them to continue to see the success that they're having. But remember, we talked about like why largemouth bass. It's because you enjoy the challenge. I enjoy the challenge. Yeah. And if you're really who you think you are, you will accept the challenge gladly of added pressure and hard to catch fish, because then it should mean even more.
Yeah.
Because it comes back to context, right? If you're really a badass, it doesn't matter.
Right. Yeah.
Like, it shouldn't matter.
Yeah. Right.
You're going to continue to deliver and be consistent and catch these hard to catch fish.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. But if you rely on your private pond that not being fished, and that's your way of being a superstar.
Right.
Like, dude, it goes back to context. Like, who are you really?
Right. Exactly. Yeah. It's and as I said earlier, it's important that the community, the bass fishing community, and we're talking
and even
about
fly fishing,
or fly fishing. We all stay together as a collective unit, because it doesn't do anybody any good to hold and not share information.
That's right.
It's such bullshit.
It really is.
And like I said, if so many people do that and they don't pass the torch, these fisheries are going to get lost. You're not going to have participation. And guess what happens? Well, an agency gets involved and says, yeah, like I said earlier, nobody's here, we're going to lock the gates. And that's not only your local lakes, but that could be, anywhere.
Yeah.
And you do not want that to happen. You
Absolutely
don't want...
not.
Well, the last thing you want is the sport. For my biggest fear is that fly fishing declines in numbers of people. I think we've managed to do a pretty good job of making it, because my whole perspective about fly fishing is just try and make people show that it's kind of a cool thing to do. It's got like, you kind of like that snowboardy kind of like feel to it. You don't need to care. I mean, half my cupboard has flat caps in it, and people like, I mean, I love it. It's just...
Oh no, you're not a flat brimmer, are you?
For damn sure. This is like the only one I have that's got a bend in it. But in Mongolia, one of the guys referred to me in one of the airports. He didn't even know I was standing there. He's like, that flat cap wearing South African guide in Mongolia. I was like, there's only one of those, bro. There's only one of those.
I love it.
Anyway, and then I was holding a 55-inch timer.
Yes.
So the thing is like my biggest fear is the sport to decline in people enjoying it.
That's right.
Yeah.
We want it to go that way.
That's right.
That's all we want to do.
And I mean, it feels now there's a great energy in fly fishing. We've got there are a great core of younger folks coming up. We need to keep that going.
Honestly, I've actually been pretty well received by like some of the fly fishing community.
Well, but because I mean,
it's awesome. Like, I've been working with Meat Eater a little bit. Look out for season 2 of Das Boat. If you guys haven't already, watched season 1, episode 4 with April Vokey, who is pretty prominent in your world, right?
Yeah.
So much respect for her, because she is busting her ass trying to keep up with me on Lake Okeechobee, and she just really didn't stand a chance, but she stuck to her guns. And I respect the hell out of her for that. Right? And I've been exposed to, like, the entire film crew were all fly fishermen.
Yeah.
Right? And man, I have so much respect for that world. And it seems to be somewhat mutual, at least, hopefully, to a degree. And I see an opportunity for both of those cultures to actually work in conjunction. Because they just seem so separate. Like, even when you go to a trade show, right? You go to ICAST, you got the fly fishing aisle.
Oh,
it's just like...
Okay, you guys are over there, behind the curtain. Okay, and all the convention guys are over here.
That's a very good point.
It's like you feel like the redheaded stepchild. It's just weird.
Totally.
Yeah.
But
I didn't even know what to say.
It's just, I don't know. It's just weird. I don't know. But
so it even starts at an industry level.
So it's whatever. Right?
So let's screw that, because like I hate to say it, like it's not the aliens invading to bring the human race together. Hopefully won't happen. But like, man, let's just be a little proactive and just come together anyway. because we have such a passionate commonality in catching fish that it doesn't really matter how you want to do it, whether it's
Right.
live bait, whether it's artificial, whether it's fly, or whether you want to be a harvest fisherman or catch and release. It's like, just have some common sense, understand somebody else's perspective, and just be a decent human being when you're
Right, and
making
just
decisions.
respect that. Respect
That's it.
Hey, that's your space. Great, man. Whatever your trip is, you want to go fish a bobber with a shiner in Lake Okeechobee? Cool,
That
man.
sounds like fun.
But reasonably harvest the fish and don't be a dick about it.
And we need to talk about that
Yeah.
a little bit
So,
in a future
but,
episode too.
Yeah. So, but I don't.
That's so
Whatever.
much to say about the
What,
Texas coast. on that.
whatever somebody's fishing trip is, that's fine. I'm not gonna give them any heat about that. But you do see a lot of like muscle flexing and bullshit. It's like, yeah, well, I'm a marlin fisherman and I use, and it's like
You know what I love
it's just
though,
weird.
honestly, is that meme going around with like Will Ferrell and like the spandex with the like literal ribbon dance.
Yeah.
Like the fly. This is
Well, I mean,
fly
that is
fisherman.
pretty
Well, no,
funny.
they
That's hilarious. I'm
But-
sorry.
I mean, I don't know how many times you've heard this. Oh, you're throwing that fairy wand, huh? They
Yeah.
call it a fairy wand. It's like, yeah, well, whatever.
Call it a
You
fly.
want to come catch an 800-pound mako on a fairy wand? Let's go.
That's
Yeah.
it. See, so that's the thing. I make fun of this all the
Whatever.
time. Like, who decides what is like macho and non-masculine in fishing? Like, dude, nobody cares that we catch these fish
No.
at the end of the day.
Nobody gives a shit.
That's right.
We're the world's tallest midgets, by the way.
Yes.
Will's
Yes.
We're the world's tallest
Dude,
midgets.
like
So who gives a
nobody
rat's ass?
cares. Once
You-
we step out of this building, like these
Nobody
locals,
knows who
like
fucking-
they're just another bunch of chump clients that overpaid
Or
for
they don't even
their
know what the hell
drinks
you are.
and,
It's like,
and
oh,
food.
But here's another funny example of how, even within fly fishing, our own worst enemy is. We had this massive discussion on a forum on Facebook. It was a couple of years back, actually. So
I think
don't
that's
know
the
who
most
posted-
toxic forum, and
I don't really go on it
By the
much
way.
anymore because
Go
of
ahead.
exactly that. But so what happened is I can't remember. Somebody posted a GT photo that I was holding a big GT or whatever. It was on the flats with a fly rod. And firstly, this guy banged off and said you can't catch a big GT like that on a fly rod. So okay, we said okay, this is fine. We can deal with it. But then we like
you mean he
starts-
couldn't catch a big
Yeah.
GT on a fly like that on a fly rod?
So then he said, what rig are you using? So I said I was using a 12 weight, whatever reel, and I was using a 130 pound straight hard mono leader. And this guy immediately said to us, okay, well then you're on fly fishing, you're just towing a
Oh,
fish.
God.
I said to him, so the mechanics of me casting a rod with a fly, I'm getting it out there with a fly, stripping, landing the fish, is not fly fishing because I used 130
It's not
pound hard
IGFA,
mono.
man.
Yeah, and that was his argument. And then we said to him, like, I know we're a young generation, but we're all about landing that fish. And so my favorite part about fishing is that first set and dominating that fish.
Yes.
I'm all about beating that thing down.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if I can land that, if it's a 150 pound GT and I landed him in 10 seconds, I made it my bitch.
That's right. Yeah.
I don't need to fight him.
Yeah.
For what?
Exactly.
You know, it's funny. I get comments about like, oh, that didn't look fun at all. You just winched that 12-pound bass to the boat in 3 seconds. Like, you've obviously never done it because it was pretty fun.
Yeah.
Like-
But it's convincing that fish to actually hit the
That's
lure.
it. That's it. Yeah.
So.
Hey, man, I don't know what you guys at Yeti do, but the rest of us are actually putting in work.
That's some fly fishing.
Oh,
yeah.
This is going by only.
Oh, so you're not supposed to say it in front of friends. Oh, hey, by
Wait.
the way.
Is there
Uh,
is there a party going on down there? Or are you guys making all the noise?
We're the party.
Okay.
This is the
Oh, you
party.
guys are doing your podcast.
Oh,
Oh,
snap.
come on in.
Yeah, we're
You guys want in on this?
Yeah, come
Hey,
on.
if you need any professional advice,
Oh, yeah. Exactly.
yeah.
These guys are definitely the
Talking about
pros.
Yeah. Sorry, you got the B squad over here.
Yeah. Hey man, cheers to Yeti and supporting
Yes.
some incredible
Cheers.
people. I get comments from my audience sometimes, right, trying to criticize Yeti over like
Oh.
things they're ignorant about, but like, oh man, I can't believe you represent Yeti. It's like blah blah blah. I'm like, dude, it's wild. It's like, you know what? They support me, and they're genuine people, and their values are true. And from what I see, they support hunters and fishermen and outdoorsmen and barbecuers, and
More than any company I know.
more so with a real genuine passion. So shout out to Yeti.
Absolutely. I mean,
And that's, look at this guy. They support this dude. He kills
Yeah.
things in Alaska.
and that's a
Giant.
tragedy.
1,000-pound bears.
Man, so
Jeez.
so wild. But anyways, we got a little bit off track here today.
Yeah.
So, jumping into this clash of cultures
Mhm.
has been very enjoyable for me, but I'm gonna kind of wrap this up as one podcast.
Cool.
That's great. Yeah.
If you
That's
guys are
awesome.
good, because we have a whole nother bevy.
Sorry, it's so easy to get distracted on going down that tunnel.
Well, that's the thing, right? You get the right people together, and this can go on and on.
Yeah.
But this
and
means a
on.
lot. This is my life. I mean, like I said to my wife, this is it. You can't try and even ever take this away from me.
Right.
Wow.
This is it.
Yep.
I live and breathe this.
You're lucky you have a wife that really supports you.
Yes.
So- and
no,
so do I, by the
100%.
way.
100%.
Apparently, there have been 2 unicorns
One-
out there.
yeah,
'cause
yeah.
I'm just
Yeah,
dealing
we
with
got
like
unicorns. We're holding on.
Oh my God. Yeah. No, but it
But
is
yeah.
Maybe
great.
the problem is me. I don't know.
You're only 30. What? 8?
So we don't need to talk about ages here, man. Come on.
42? Don't get married until you're 40. But anyway, yeah, it
Just means a lot. That's why we can talk about this for. I can sit here for
Yeah.
a week and talk.
Because it
about
matters to you guys,
Yeah.
right?
it does. Yeah.
I think I'm at a point in my career and my character arc as a fisherman that how we influence the fishing culture overall and even in our own spaces really matters. And now we're kind of in a weird age where attention has substituted respect,
That's interesting. Yeah.
right?
Mm.
Because the power of an audience, no matter how you gathered it, is
That's true. I mean,
is
that's a whole
holding
other
more
podcast.
weight. It really is.
Yeah.
So this is just a reminder to people that context still matters to the real ones.
Be authentic.
Yeah.
You know, do your homework, put the time in on the water, and just, I mean,
That's it.
That's
Because
Work
I
hard.
hope
work hard.
I
Work
hope
freaking
Nothing's
hard.
easy.
That's it.
Nothing's fucking easy.
and I hope to earn the respect of dope MFers like you guys, right? By my representation of my body of work.
Sure. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay. Versus
And I
like
think we all feel the same.
Oh,
We
yeah.
have the same.
versus being a clown or an entertainer or whatever just for the attention that
Right.
that kind of artificially blows up this semblance of
Right.
of importance and impact. But like, what kind of impact are you really having?
Here's the impact that I have. When one person, if it's a young person, comes up to me and goes, dude, I saw a video of you like when I was like 8 years old. And this kid now is, let's say he's 20. He's like, that fucking changed my life. I wanted to target big fish on a fly rod.
Wow.
Whether it was a Mako or whatever. I'm like, wow, cool, man. That's the impact.
That's powerful.
That's huge. And it
Yeah.
doesn't matter how many social media followings I have, which is not a lot, but it's like I reach that one kid, and that makes it all
Absolutely.
worth it for me.
Sometimes I find myself, 11:43 p.m. in the middle of the bayou, wondering like, why am I still working while the rest of this team is out there just letting loose and having fun? Like, why do I push so hard? Is it because of those one-on-one
You
engagements?
got it, man.
Yeah.
That one person
Yeah.
touch.
Because somebody has reached out to me and impacted me in
That's right.
my arc,
Yeah.
and I remember how important that was. So if I can do that for one person,
And they took the time to have that moment with
that's
you.
it, man. They never big time me.
Never.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I've been big time by people that I've looked
Sure.
up to, right?
Yeah.
And that's always
That-
left
that's a tragedy,
sour taste
man.
in my
Yeah.
life, my mouth. Like,
But I think there's a lot of the times. I think every person in this room and every person in this group, if you threw them an inbox at some point, whether they're not in some crazy place, I feel like a lot of these guys in this that's here will send a message back. It's that kind of crew.
Yeah.
Really
Oh, absolutely.
legit people.
Yeah.
Like even with, and I think a lot of people like you get people asking you who runs your social media and all that kind of stuff. It's fucking me.
Yeah.
Who knows
Yeah.
me? If you get a message, it's from me.
That's
if you get
right.
a message from on YouTube or wherever, that's
Yeah.
me.
That's
Yeah.
it.
I don't,
It's
I'm
crazy.
trying
people,
to work on that.
people respond like, "Oh, I can't believe you actually messaged me." Like,
Yeah,
what are
yeah.
you talking about? You're like, I'm just a dude
But
that
that's
loves
special.
catching fish. Like, I'm nobody crazy.
Right.
So, anyways,
But that puts it in perspective. People think that you are. They'll put you up on in this kind of stratosphere.
which is fascinating
And
because I
which is
feel
weird.
like people will paint a picture of you
That's
either
right.
in a very positive light or a negative light,
Right.
Yeah.
and build you to be whoever they want you to be in their own mind without actual interaction with
Right.
you on a one-on-one
Yeah,
level.
no, it's true.
So my advice is to actually give everybody a real chance, treat them with respect, right?
Yep.
And remember, the energy you put out is going to be the energy you receive. So if you're a dick to someone, how do you really expect them to respond? But if you're actually open-minded and just, test the waters and be like, let's see what this dude's about.
Yeah.
And like, oh man, this guy's actually cool, even though he fishes flies. Like, you just never know, man. You just never know. Like,
Give him a chance.
But he also might
give him a
manage
chance.
one of the greatest bass reservoirs on the
you
West
mean
Coast.
crappie reservoirs, right? So, anyways,
I'm not giving those secrets out.
remind these guys where they can follow you, because you guys are fascinating, and take my word for it, you guys want to follow these guys because they take their passion to an extreme, and it's fascinating. There's learning opportunities for you guys, for me. Please share that information.
So it's Conway Bowman on Instagram, and then I also do a podcast called the Southern California Podcast on the Barbless Network. I co-host that with my beautiful wife, Michelle, and we cover everything Southern California fishing, and this guy is going to be one of our very soon episodes.
Cool. I'll listen to it.
Yeah, please do.
You can just follow on Instagram. It's at CaptainJackProductions.com, CAPTProductions.com, and then same thing. My website, CaptainJackProductions.com. I can't even remember what the other ones are, but those would be the ones that I
Badass
put the most stuff.
motherfucker.
That's right. You mean
Put some
Captain
stuff
Yak?
on there.
Is it Captain Yak?
Captain Yak. No, that's what I mean. I adopted that name a lot, very early on in my stage where people just couldn't say Jako, so they just called me Jack, and then
Dumb American.
like whatever it is.
Dude, we're very
I enjoy it. We
simple
have a good
people.
time.
Got a dumb stamp as Americans.
We're all there to have fun.
Awesome. Well, Oliver not here obviously because you guys are on my channel, but this is the Big Bass Dreams podcast. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure to follow these guys on their platforms. Subscribe to this channel. Stay tuned to the Big Bass Dreams channel because there's more stuff coming, and we're actually going to get into big bait, stick lines, heavyweights across all of our rounds on the next episode. So stay tuned for that, and until then, we'll catch you guys on the next one. Thank you.
That real deal, raw uncut, still chasing PBs cause it's never enough. My drag is to make a catch fish, get him in the net quick, cash for another step. That real deal, raw uncut, still chasing PBs cause it's never enough.
Medium light, graphite for the subtlest bites. Some bright blue skies, not a cloud in sight. It's dynamite when I drop, and the school ignites. Pinning them down on the hop, cause he's taking off flight. I'm using all of my might, securely taming the fight. No fright, despite my Palomar is tight.